kick off. Okay. To those who have joined us for this webinar on this Wednesday evening, welcome. This is the Mental Wellness webinar with Sherriz Mideva and MombasaWorks. We're just delighted that you take the time to come and join in this important discussion. A little bit of background as to how we arrived here. We are, first a little bit about MombasaWorks. We are a shared office space and a business enabler. We support small and growing businesses and entrepreneurs in Mombasa. We do this through providing flexible office facilities, as well as opportunities to network, collaborate, and learn from each other and those who are more seasoned, like we are doing today. On the back of one of our member meetups, a few of us kind of started to discuss around some of the challenges that we've been having as business owners, self-employed people. And it just came out that one of the common issues that we were all facing was just, well, it was two things. It was a combination of burnout, of anxiety. Everyone was sort of, oh gosh, excuse me, asking for advice from one another in these issues. And we decided, well, why not hold space for each other to discuss some of these issues, excuse me. And so that's how this webinar was born. We're very, very fortunate to have within our membership pool a variety of professionals as well, and Sherriz is among one of them. So we are delighted to have Sherriz here, who's able to come and hold space for us and lead us through this discussion on mental wellness. Before I hand over to Sherriz, we had a few learning outcomes for this session as well, which is, I think, is good to highlight up front. What we wanted to do is to simply raise awareness on these issues of mental wellness, to understand what some of these issues are and why they're important. We wanted to identify the ways in which that mental wellness or mental health issues manifest, how to identify them in and around us, and be introduced to some of the coping strategies and prevention as well as coping strategies that exist, included there how and when to seek help and to whom. Recognize that there is a lot of discussion these days about mental wellness, and one of the things that we've been very careful to do is just be very clear on the scope of this discussion and what we mean when we're talking about mental wellness as opposed to mental health and mental illness and so on. And Sherriz will get more into that. A little bit of housekeeping. We are recording the session to be able to share with those who catch the discussion halfway and for yourselves who've been here from the beginning. Secondly, we have a poll going. We have 2 questions on the poll. So the first of which is a question, how do you feel today? To give us an idea of how everybody's feeling, to get in the mood of the discussion we're going to have today. And since we are talking about wellness in the context of our work, the second question is, do you think your work is your biggest stressor? So we have those 2 questions to guide us, especially when we come to the Q&A, and help Sherriz see where she wants to focus some of her comments towards the end. So without further ado, I will hand over to Sherriz, who will lead us through the rest of this webinar. It is now 5:15. We anticipate presentation discussion to take between 60 to 75 minutes. And I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Cindy, and I am the director here at MombasaWorks. Karibuni-san. Over to you, Sherriz.
Thank you, Cindy. Hi, everyone. I hope you guys are doing great. Looking forward to see the answers on the poll, the results of the poll. My name is Sherriz Mideva. I am a psychologist. I am so honored to be here. Very glad to have to see Paula, Comfort, Sandra, Glory, Jerry, Nice to have you guys on here. I'm so honored to be able to speak about the issue that is mental wellness, especially May being Mental Awareness Month, Mental Health Awareness Month. And we just were able to just catch it before it ended. So I'm really, really glad that Cindy thought about this and came up with this brainchild. So today we're mostly going to discuss mental wellness and mental health in regard to workspaces and the different ways that we experience mental health issues, how to cope with things, how to define some terms and not get them wrong. So I think I'm going to share my screen just now so we can begin our presentation. Please be free to share questions in the chat. I'm sure Cindy is going to be seeing them. And you can just, if you have questions along the way, you can just type them into the chat and then we can look at them at the end of the presentation. So I am going to share my screen with you. All right. So this is our topic of the day is mental wellness, basically in the context of our work. And we're very glad to have partnered with MombasaWorks, which is a place where I work from, because working from home can be a rumor on our productivity. I'm very honored to be part of this community. And this is just a little bit about myself. So as I introduce myself, I'm Sherriz Mideva. I am a psychologist by profession. I did both my degree and my master's degree from Kenyatta University and from the University of Ottawa with a major in clinical psychology and mostly cognitive behavioral therapy, which is the type of therapy that I practice. So there's a lot of different versions of therapy when you see a therapist, and I major in CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. I also consider myself a mental health awareness activist and advocate. I am very much into the space of teaching people how to take care of their mental health, how to understand their mental health, and how to become better people, self-development, and all that. I'm a writer. Other than professionally writing content for a lot of corporate clients, I also have a blog which I use as my, not really my diary, but like a blog I use to educate and entertain, and a podcast called The Yellow Corner. So The Yellow Corner is both my blog and my podcast. And mostly I like to do fun stuff, because today we're going to understand how important it is to do fun things in your day-to-day activity or once in a while, just to prevent yourself from basically losing your mind. A little bit of a disclaimer today, just to, as you can see on your screens, the disclaimer today is this is not a therapy session. This is not to be mistaken for a professional therapy session. It is basically a session to educate you, to make you more aware of how to spot your mental health, like your mental health ability to sustain yourself during a work day, a work week, in your homes, in your social life. And if you do feel like part of the session points out to something that you might be experiencing, it is very important that you do consider calling a professional or seeing a professional if you're able to. And yeah. So some of the common terms that we're going to encounter during this presentation, just for the sake of clarification, and you don't get lost in the way. So there's mental wellness. So mental wellness is a state of being mentally well in a way that you can be able to think, feel, and act in a creative space, in a positive space. You're able to get your work done. You're able to interact with people in a level that is not causing strenuous effect on your mind or your thinking capacity. Mental illness, according to the American Psychiatric Association, is basically a condition that you experience that changes how you think, how you feel, and how you behave. So this condition could be something that keeps you from doing your work properly, or something that keeps you from interacting with people properly. So that is when you can say that you have a mental illness. A stressor, something that I will speak of a lot, is anything that you experience that makes your environment hard to deal with. your job hard to deal with, your even basic thinking hard to deal with, we call that a stressor. It's something that is challenging, could be threatening to you or your life. Sometimes our jobs are stressors. Most times we find that our jobs are stressors. The difference between the three terms in medical profession, we have a psychologist, which I am, and a psychologist is a specialist who is involved in diagnosing and treating any form of emotional disturbance or behavioral problems. A psychiatrist, on the other hand, is a medical doctor. So the major difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist is a psychiatrist is able to prescribe medication and a psychologist cannot prescribe medication. And we have a mental health practitioner. So this is a general term that we use for psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers, counselors, basically anybody who can help you cope with a mental health stressor is referred to as a mental health practitioner. Only if they're qualified and registered, then they're called a mental health practitioner. So what is mental health? Basically, there's a lot of talk about us being mentally healthy, mental wellness, mental health. The thing is, people associate mental health with mental disorder and mental illness. But the difference is mental health, according to the WHO, is a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her potential, can cope with everyday stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. So the thing is, being in a state of being mentally healthy does not mean you do not experience emotions, does not mean you do not experience stresses. It just means you're at a capacity where you're able to deal with different everyday pressures. Mental health is just like physical health, basically. If you do not take care of your physical health, you're going to get sick. So if you do not take care of your mental health, you're going to get mentally ill. And it's good to understand that mental health is not a state of being mentally okay and mentally sick. Mental health is, I like to refer to it as a continuum. It's like a step where you go from low to high to high to high. So on the continuum of mental health, it's important to note that the lower you go, the harder it becomes, meaning the lower you are on the continuum of the mental health chart, it means you're heading towards mental illness like depression and anxiety. But the higher you go on the continuum, the better you're able to deal with. So the lowest end is where we find the mental disorders, such as depression, extreme chronic anxiety, and all these things. And on the other hand, which is the higher end of the mental health continuum, is where we find positive mental well-being. We find people who are thriving, content in their lives, content in their work, people who are fulfilled. And so that is majorly what we try to go onto, the direction we try to push people to learn and to grow towards the higher level of the mental health continuum. Now, a disclaimer: when we speak of mental health, we do not mean that you're either at the top of the stair or at the bottom of the stair. You see, today you could be at the middle, tomorrow at the bottom, today up there. The thing about a continuum is you go up and down, up and down, up and down. So by being able to learn your stresses, being able to learn your triggers and learning how to properly manage them, then that means you will never necessarily go past the midpoint of the mental health continuum. And which is basically where we call being mentally healthy, where you're able to handle a really bad day and not call it depression. You're able to handle a really sad day and not decide that you are extremely depressed. So what do we refer to as being mentally healthy? So an individual who is mentally healthy is often described as an individual who feels in control of their emotions, feels in control of their feelings. So that is why if you have anger issues and you constantly burst out, if someone steps on your toe and you yell at them as if they shot someone, then we can say you're not mentally healthy because you're not able to be in control of your anger. So being mentally healthy means you're feeling in control, you're being confident, you're resilient and able to cope with everyday stresses. You're feeling good about yourself. Little things such as a tiny embarrassing occurrence doesn't cause you to completely beat yourself down to the point where you think you're useless. Managing and expressing your emotions properly, you're able to build and maintain good relationships with family, with co-workers, with people in your field, with strangers. You're able to be productive and understand the difference between being productive and overworking. So what are some of the common mental health issues in the context of our work areas? So we're able to note that as people who mostly work from themselves, or if you are employed and have a business running on the side, it is a very heavy thing to bear. It is a very heavy responsibility to bear. Sometimes we find that you are the main employee in your company. You do a lot of things. You run a lot of things. So as a result of that, a study was conducted, and it was seen that a lot of people in business, entrepreneurs, and even people who are employed in fast moving areas tend to be able to experience things such as anxiety. You're able to go through anxiety, you're able to experience aspects of depression, chronic stress, and burnout. So these four have been noted to be the four that really affect people who are working for themselves and people who are literally having to handle so much work, so much things and issues that affect them. So we have majorly anxiety, because anxiety comes up as a result of worrying about the future. What will I do? Can I be able to pay my employees? Can I be able to pay my bills? Will I be able to handle my work and my personal life? We have depression, which results as mostly due to isolation, where we find that we tend to isolate ourselves when work gets too much, and then we end up being in a position where you do not speak to people, you do not have time for yourself. Your main focus is trying to work, trying to make things happen. And this could easily lead to depression. We have chronic stress, which occurs when we take everyday stress and don't deal with it, and then it builds up into chronic stress. And then finally, we have burnout. Burnout is basically what we could call exhaustion. We become too tired, and most times people don't notice they're burnt out until it's one day you're waking up and you completely hate your job, a job that you really, really love. And this is one of the major signs, one of the major signs of burnout. Please do remember that you could leave a question in the chat box as I speak, and then we can pick it up at the end of the presentation. So we're going to focus on anxiety. We begin with anxiety. We're going to look at each of the major common major health issues that we go through in the space of our work, beginning with anxiety. So anxiety, what is anxiety? Anxiety is experiencing like a very intense and persistent worry about everyday situations. So anxiety is not just your basic fear of, will I be able to complete my work today? Anxiety comes up when it's constant and it appears to be, you're always in fear, and you're always panicking about, will I be able to make the deadlines? Will I be able to pay my people? Will I be able to meet my clients where I need to meet them? So you get to the level of anxiety when you are constantly worrying about your performance. You're constantly worrying about impressing your boss or yourself. You're constantly worrying about anxiety. So what are some of the signs of anxiety that you can look out for? Rapid breathing. So do you find yourself constantly running out of breath, yet you have not really done anything? Increased heart rate. Are you constantly trying to to slow down your heartbeat? Are you constantly trying to breathe because you cannot breathe properly? Elevated levels of fear. Like I stated when I began, anxiety causes you to always fear. Everything that you think about, in the case where anxiety is something that you're going through, anything that you think about always has to have a reason as to why it will go bad. You're constantly negative about every single thing that you think about, and that leads to overthinking, which leads to constant fear. There's reduced concentration. So if you are experiencing anxiety, then you're able to notice when you go into meetings, you frequently drift off, you frequently can't hear what someone said, you are always saying, pardon me, sorry, what did you say? Because you're already thinking about tomorrow, you're already thinking about the next thing, you're already thinking about what to say next. Difficulty making decisions. So anxiety is very it's well known for making people become a very how do you say, distracted, and you cannot decide on what to pick. So you always like, if I pick this could happen, if I pick this could happen, if I say yes to this could happen, if I say no to this could happen. And so you find even the most basic decisions that you are able to make on a normal day-to-day basis, you cannot make because of the heightened anxiety. You become easily irritable and angry, always snapping at your employees or your colleagues, always snapping at your family and children if you have them, at your siblings, constantly irritated by slight noises, constantly irritated by slight inconveniences. That is a very major sign of anxiety. And the biggest one is avoidance of certain situations. So let's say you are a business person and you are very good at making marketing calls. So now, lately, because of heightened anxiety, you do not make those calls anymore. And you come up with excuses like, I don't need to do that anymore. I have enough clients. I don't need to say that anymore. You're constantly avoiding situations that could either grow you and make you better, because those are the ways that they catch you to overthinking. And that is a very big sign of anxiety. This is a quote that I really like from one of my favorite writers, and it says, "My anxiety does not come from thinking about the future, but from wanting to control it." So the thing about anxiety is, anxiety is a defense mechanism. We like to describe anxiety as a defense mechanism. Anxiety is like anger. It thinks it's protecting your body, but it is not. Think of anxiety as a dog. When you have a dog in the house or in your compound, and a stranger comes in, the dog will begin to bark to notify there's someone who is not supposed to be there. So that is your anxiety. It comes up because it thinks it's protecting you from something. Now the difference is, this dog attacks, let's say, an auntie of yours who has never come to your house. So she comes to visit and the dog attacks your aunt. And as much as the dog was doing a good thing, doing its job to protect you, it has done more damage, because now you have to pay for your auntie's medical bill. You have to maybe have the dog taken away for a bit so as to learn how to be around people. So that is anxiety. Anxiety thinks it's protecting us, but it's harming us. And anxiety comes up as a result of constantly overthinking. It comes up as you wanting to control the outcome of every single thing that you do at your job. Am I productive enough? If I don't do this today, it means tomorrow this will happen. And the thing is, sometimes you find that most of these things that cause chronic anxiety are things you really cannot control. And just because you can't control it, you go down into the, deep anxiety pool. So the second common thing that we go through in our workplace, in the area of our workspace, is depression. So depression is a word that I have found is used a lot in the wrong context. So you speak to a person and like, how are you feeling? And they tell you, I feel depressed. And depression is not necessarily you feeling sad. Depression is you feeling sad for a period of 6 months or more every single day, and you cannot pull yourself out of it. Depression is you losing interest in the things that you used to enjoy doing. Depression is you deciding you don't want to open your curtains in the house, you not showing up for your weekly or monthly meetup with your friends, you hating yourself, having very low self-esteem, and you always ready to think the worst about yourself. So for example, before you speak to someone, you've already decided what they will say about you. And the thing is, you don't think about the positive things, you think about the negative things. Those are very key signs about to note to see if maybe you could be depressed. One of the major ways to tell that you could be depressed is hopelessness. Do you often think about the future or think about even tomorrow, and you instantly say that I don't think it's going to be good? Are you the kind of person who is very quick to say life is hard and I don't think it's going to get better? Or are you the person who sees the glass as half full, half empty? Now, a reminder of what I said in the beginning: it is common to feel sad, it is common to feel low, it is common to say, I don't think it's going to be a good day. That is okay. Doesn't mean you're depressed. But if that is the way you feel every single day, or 20 out of 30 days for a period of 6 to 9 months consecutively, then that is a sign that you need to see a mental health professional, to see if you should be diagnosed with depression. So, as I said, a lot of people mistake being sad with being depressed. So, as you can see on the screen right now, I try to differentiate between depression and sadness. So, when you're sad, it is mostly an emotion. When you lose someone, or when you don't get a deal that you hoped you would, or you don't reach a goal that you wanted to reach, then you instantly become sad. It's basically feeling down or unhappy, and it is often as a response to an event, a situation, something that happened. That is being sad. Now, the difference between being sad and depressed is when you're depressed, you constantly feel sad. You are always sad. It doesn't matter if it's a good situation, if you're in a happy place where people are laughing, jokes don't make sense to you anymore. You lose interest in daily life. You're unable to do basic things like taking a shower. Now, that is a sign of depression, and that is what you should be able to look out for. Another reminder: depression is something that occurs over a long period of time, and not just being sad for 2 to 3 days. Yeah. And the final thing we can look out for in the aspect of our work is burnout. So, what is burnout? Burnout is a psychological syndrome that occurs from chronic job stress. Chronic job stress is one of the major stresses when it comes to our mental health being affected. And burnout occurs mostly when the amount of work you're putting in does not level up to the amount of reward you're getting back. Now, you might think reward is monetary. Sometimes it could be that you could feel that you're putting in a lot of work, you're working overtime, and you're not getting the desired amount of money that you want to get. Or it could really be fulfillment. A lot of times you're doing your job, but the amount of fulfillment and joy you feel from your job is something that does not line up with the amount of effort you put in, and that results into burnout. Now, it's very important because burnout is something that affects a lot of working professionals. Burnout comes out because you're being underpaid, you're being you're under resting, you're not really putting getting back half. We could say half of what you're putting out. So it's like you have a glass full of water and you pour all of it into your work, and then all you get back is a quarter. So it doesn't really make sense, and that often leads to burnout. Some of the signs of burnout are exhaustion. So you are constantly tired. You are constantly tired. You cannot do anything out of work. You cannot hang out with your friends. You cannot hang out with your family. All you want to do is go home and shut everything out and fall asleep. You're always tired. You wake up in the morning tired. You go to sleep tired. You cannot eat. That is one of the major signs of burnout. If you have to drag yourself out of bed over and over and over, you could be burnt out. If you're constantly feeling drained mentally, emotionally, physically, you could be burnt out. If you're constantly irritable. So these are things that physically manifest as exhaustion. You're constantly irritable, you are very draggy, very emotional, very irritable, your body aches, and you know you did not do any activity to cause your body to ache, then that is a sign that you're burnt out. The second sign that you could be burnt out is cynicism and detachment. So if you have developed a very negative outlook towards your job or your work, then that is a sign of burnout. So for example, maybe you have a company, you run your own company, or you have a job that you truly enjoy, or you go to school and you really loved going to school. What happens when all of a sudden you are just like, is it really worth it? Do I really want to do this? Do I really enjoy this? And if you're constantly having a negative attitude about your work, you constantly have to talk yourself into going to work, you do not enjoy your work anymore, it feels like a chore now. You find yourself saying, I'm only doing this for the pay because I need to make rent. If you are constantly feeling very disconnected with the things that you do, for example, if you used to deal with people and now all of a sudden you are exhausted, you do not want to speak to people, you do not want to talk to people, your work is constantly doing reports and you do not enjoy it at all, yet you used to really enjoy it, that is a very big sign that you are burnt out. If you're constantly in conflict with your employees, with your colleagues, if you, any small thing is a cause for you to fight at the office space or at your workplace or at your Zoom meeting, that is a sign you could be burnt out. Lack of accomplishment is another sign that you could be burnt out. So you constantly do things on your to-do list, but you never really tick them all out, or you do tick them out, but you don't feel like you did it to the best of your ability. You don't apply excellence in every single thing that in prior days you used to do really well and really love. You are doing poorly, your performance is not too good, your numbers are not adding up, you're feeling useless and ineffective. You feel like anything, the rest of the work could happen whether you were there or not. That is a big sign that you could be burnt out. And we also have some bit of physical things that you could look out for to determine if you are burnt out. Do you constantly have headaches for no reason? Do you find yourself having blurry vision? Is your appetite suddenly too low for you to eat anything? Are you just eating because people are eating or just because you have to eat? Do you constantly find yourself not taking care of yourself? If you used to enjoy a 30-minute shower, now you just take a 10-minute shower just so you can show up at the office looking presentable. That is a sign of burnout. Now, the thing is, burnout is very common. As you can see, burnout happens to 4 out of 10 people on a monthly basis. The prevalence of burnout is roughly 46%. People in more demanding professions experience burnout more, but a lot of people experience burnout on a daily basis, on a monthly basis. I personally experienced burnout pretty recently, and it had to take me to take a sit back and to be able to like speak to myself and tell myself, you need to take a break or you need to do this. So how do we prevent ourselves from experiencing this common mental health issues in our workplace, in our day-to-day lives, and how we take care of ourselves? So we call this the 5 ways to well-being. So the 5 ways to well-being are what we refer to in the mental health space as what the 5 ways you need to look out for. Yes, Cindy?
Oh, sorry. I just thought before you get on to the sort of coping strategies,
All
um,
right.
I thought because there were a couple of questions that people asked when they were registering, and
Okay.
I think it would be nice if you could just touch on a little bit about why perhaps you feel that burnout, for example, is such a common thing, or are we more aware of it or conscious of sort of mental health issues now as opposed to previously, or are we seeing just because of the challenges in the economy, in the job market, etc. Is that why we're seeing kind of these statistics? We saw that 36% of work-related illnesses in Kenya, are due to stress and burnout, as you mentioned, like 1 in 4 people every month. Or was it 4 in 10 people? Sorry. So just
Yeah.
your experience and why are we seeing more of this?
Yeah, sure. So as we noticed, burnout occurs when we do not have the ability to separate, or sorry, the ability to relate the turnout of our, more like what we put out isn't in relate the same relation to what we receive back. And burnout tends to happen mostly if we do not have a good work life and social life balance. We do not have healthy boundaries with our jobs. We do not have healthy boundaries with the people we work with. So this tends to lead us into burnout. A lot of people will push themselves to work overnight because they know they need a job, but would never push themselves to sleep a whole night. So why do we do this? Because as human beings, it's natural for us to like to impress other people more than we impress ourselves. So that is something that we tend to fall for a lot. We tend to enjoy making other people feel better than we make ourselves feel better. So that comes up also in the level of boundaries, comes out in, are we creating healthy boundaries within our, from between our work and our social well-being? Are we putting too much effort in our work more than we are in our wellness? So that really does end up becoming burnout, because as Sherriz, am I more interested in helping other people than I'm interested in helping myself? So that tends to lead me to burnout, because I constantly feel my sense of accomplishment, my self of fulfillment is linked to how many people I help, how many people I see, how many people I talk to. So as an employee or as a business person, if your sense of accomplishment is majorly linked to how much money I make, how much impact I make on something, then you will tend to reach out to that more than you would reach out to taking care of yourself. So the thing is, you need to find a way to understand that if you don't take care of yourself, then you will not be able to do the things that give you accomplishment. And then also being able to find accomplishment in taking care of yourself, linking self-care, linking boundaries to self-accomplishment is a good way to start. Like reminding yourself by saying no to speaking to Cindy after 10 p.m., it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. So the moment you help yourself understand that that is an accomplishment in itself, you will instead of feeling guilty and taking calls past 10 p.m., you will enjoy doing that. And then your chance of getting burnt out goes low. Did I answer?
Yeah, I mean,
I
that's
hope I did.
interesting. And I guess we're going to get into it even more like in the next couple of slides. So do you think like we just have a tendency like in our culture or something to want to help and serve other people, you know, and leading us down this route?
Yeah, I believe so. The thing is, it's funny how we have been taught to feel guilty about being selfish. There's different levels of being selfish as people. Um, Growing up, being religion, being community, anything that you've been doing, you were constantly told you need to do this so people can like you, so people don't think of you like this. So, for example, being Africans, moms would put away certain cutlery to use during when guests come. And why would they do that? Because they want their guests to think, oh wow, you have lovely things. So without them knowing, they taught us that you need to impress other people more than you impress those who live with you. Because those who live with you will use the plastic cups, but when the guests come, you'll remove the expensive china. In the same way, it might look like a very non-issue, but that is the thing, you know, you carry with you everywhere you go. You tend to now always aim to impress other people, always aim to impress and to have other people say this instead of what you, not seeing what you think and what you believe in yourself as important. That's why you tend to dress better if you know you're going to meet someone than if you just know you're going to hang out at a coffee shop alone. It's basically the same mechanism.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, we could talk, I mean, we could go on for hours. Okay, I'm conscious of time, so I'll let you go on, get on with the presentation, and then we can, we'll get to the formal Q&A a bit later. But feel free to keep dropping any questions in the chat. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so back to we're discussing coping mechanisms and how to prevent yourself from experiencing anxiety and burnout and chronic stress and depression. And we call them the 5 ways to well-being. So the 5 ways to well-being are often what we call in the mental health space the 5 things that you constantly need to do and constantly need to look out for to prevent yourself from getting to the extremes. Like we spoke about it at the beginning, we said that mental health is a continuum. It is not something that is constant. You're not constantly mentally ill, mentally unhealthy, mentally healthy. There is nothing like that. It is a continuum where you go up and down, up and down. And it is good that if you're able to cope and control, then we can say you're mentally healthy because you're able to move up and down the continuum without it affecting how you work. So how do you ensure that you prevent yourself from experiencing this? The 5 ways of well-being are connect, be active, keep learning, take notice, and give. So I'm going to dive deeper into this. So when we say connect, what do we mean? So if you find yourself that you are constantly disconnected from people, you call yourself a loner, there is nothing wrong with enjoying your own company more than you enjoy other people's company. But the thing is, statistics show that people who spend more time alone are more likely to be depressed, are more likely to experience anxiety, social anxiety, are more likely to experience overthinking. So we encourage people to connect, especially in the space where right now we're doing a lot of Zoom. For example, this webinar. In other situations, it could have been a face-to-face meeting, which would have created room to connect. But now, since a lot of things are happening online, it's very important to find a way. Call up a friend, go and hang out, volunteer, go do something where you comfortable to could just to a park, could sit around you of connect with other people, speak to them. We encourage people to connect with family, ensure you have a routine. If it's hanging out with your friends once a month, if you're extremely busy, make sure you pick a date once a month and stick to it. If you are you like an activity, find a club in your town that does this activity and join the club. This could help you expand your social circles. We encourage you to be active. So this means working out. Not many people enjoy working out, I know, but working out comes in different varieties. You don't have to go to the gym. You can take a walk around your estate. You can put on music in the house and dance. You can be able to just go outside if you have a compound, plant a garden, start a little flower pot. That in itself is you being physically involved in something. Uh, Despite having so much, we're constantly on our computers, we're constantly very static, we don't move, and that has direct impact on our mental well-being. So it is very important that you look for ways daily, go for a run, go for a walk, even if it's 20 minutes. I usually advise people, ensure out of your entire day, take just 20 minutes to do something, to take a walk, to breathe outside, to let the sun hit your skin, to just dance in your house. The third thing is keep learning. So when you keep learning, the thing about learning is it grows our confidence. So anxiety, depression, things like this come up when we start to feel that we're not worthy. You have a new presentation at work, you feel like you're not worthy, but you have to meet new people, you feel like, what will I speak to them about? I don't know much. Learning new things gives you more things to talk about. If you think about this on a shallow end, if I go read a book about pottery and then I meet someone, I'm like, oh my God, so yesterday I made a pot with my hands. And they'll be like, oh, that is so cool. So it's totally unrelated, but it's an icebreaker. Take time to learn new things. If it's not just learning new things, then go back to something that you used to enjoy doing, like an old hobby that you stopped or like you dropped, pick it up. In that way, you could make new friends. It can make you more confident. You see, when you learn about things, if you keep reading, keep watching videos, keep reading books, keep going to events, you're able to learn new things that make you, there's something about knowing you know something about mental health that gives you a certain confidence. And that would be something to talk about in a place where social anxiety creeps in. Then we have take notice. So this we call the aspect of being mindful, of being present. So when you take notice of the world, it means, are you being mindful of the world? Are you present in what you're doing? Are you present in the now? Am I present in this webinar? Am I noticing birds around me? Am I in my office and seeing plants? Am I taking it in the moment, or am I constantly worrying about what will happen next? When I walk into a room, am I instantly thinking about how do I say hi to these people? Or am I just enjoying the fact that I have been welcomed into this room? So it's very important to be present. This will help you to be present with your families, help you to be present in your companies. And when you're present, you're able to notice the tiniest of things, such as reading the room. So we find ourselves falling into places where we get anxiety because we feel like we do things wrong all the time. But the thing is very simple. Probably you don't read the room. You come in and you instantly begin to talk because you're trying to cover up your anxiety. Now, if you're present and you're able to read the room, you'd see, okay, are these people laughing? Should I crack a joke? Are these people sad? What is happening? Should I check up on this one? Does this one like to say hi by shaking their hand or by waving? So being present helps you to really learn and enjoy the now, to pay attention, and also gives you this aura of gratitude, which constantly keeps you away from feeling very overwhelmed by thoughts of the future, by thoughts of things going wrong. And the final one is giving. So giving doesn't necessarily have to be money. The thing is, when human beings here give, they think, okay, they're about to say give some money. No, we don't necessarily mean give money. You could smile at a stranger. You could wave at a little child who's playing outside your door. You see, the thing, when a stranger returns your smile, there's a feeling that comes through. These hormones are released in you that like instantly cause you to feel a lot better than you were doing. Being kind to someone, donating your time, going to help a colleague who's having a difficult time, let's say with a presentation or with paperwork, offering to give them 30 minutes of your time. That in itself is a great way to maintain your mental health well-being. So what do we do in the case that you notice that you have some of these symptoms, or you pick out some of these things that we've spoken about and you're like, oh my goodness, I think I'm burnt out, or I think I'm experiencing burnout or a bit of anxiety. These are the things that basically we call them the coping strategies. We call them the first aid, where like a band-aid that you could use, or basically like Dettol that you could apply on a wound to make it heal before it becomes septic. Yeah. So we encourage people to have social support. This means ensuring that you communicate with your workers, with your colleagues, with family and friends about what you're feeling. A lot of times we don't talk about how we're feeling because we're afraid. There's a lot of stigma that has come up with mental health, where if you say, I'm really stressed out, and someone instantly tells you, well, at least you have a job, well, at least you're making money, well, at least you're not sleeping outside, be grateful. So that's something we call toxic positivity, which is a topic for another time. But it is not that you're not grateful for what you have, but at the same time, your emotions and feelings are valid. So if someone does tell you, oh, you shouldn't feel stressed because at least you have a job and you're making money, and that is a very wrong way to look at it. In psychology, we call it abuse. We call it psychological abuse, and it's something that, having attended this webinar, you should look out that you do not say this to other people. But yeah, ensuring that you do have people around you who are supportive. And this means that the stigma that is around speaking about how we feel, how stressed we are, how tired we are, how exhausted we are, has become so bad because we're afraid of being labeled ungrateful. And this leads us to hide in our cocoon. And therefore, we're not able to speak about things that are really bugging us. So it's very important to have a circle of people, a colleague you trust, even a random stranger who you meet up for coffee to vent is very important, because having someone who validates how you feel makes you understand how you feel is okay and you can get out of it is very important. So that's why we say you need to have a social support, a best friend, family, a friend, or just a therapist, someone to go talk to. That's an important place to say that you don't need to be mentally ill to see a therapist. You can see a therapist at any given time. You could do prioritizing a social circle. This is part of being having the social support, prioritizing your social time. So for example, the same way you schedule your week, the same way you schedule your year with targets and all these things, is very important to schedule your social time. So say Sunday is your family day, or once a month I'm going to hang out with my friends, or once a year I'm going to have a whole family reunion of my entire family. Make sure you schedule your social times and stick to that schedule in the same level that you stick to your work schedule, in the same way that you stick to your the schedule or that your bosses have given you. With that same discipline, stick to your social circle schedule. Do not be the person who cancels all the time because you have to work. Be the person who says, oh, I'm sorry, I cannot be able to work on Saturday because I had a prior engagement with a relative, with a friend. This makes you more aware. It makes you more it makes it harder for you to go into depression, into burnout, because now you have a place where there's love and fluff. We call it fluff because like you have clouds around you. The second thing is you need to change your work strategies. So sit down and have an evaluation of what are my working hours? Do I have specific working hours? So this is where creating boundaries with your work comes in. Are you able to create specific boundaries and say, after 6 p.m., I am not taking a business call. After 6 p.m., I'm shutting down my laptop. After 6 p.m., I'm not taking a client. Are you able to set these boundaries for yourselves? So this could be easier for people who are self-employed more than people who are employed by a company. But it's also important to understand that if you do work for a company and it says you work from 9 to 5 p.m., then it's good to remind your boss that if I do work overtime, then you owe me overtime. So you can have the balance where the amount of work you're putting out is directly proportional to the amount of satisfaction you're receiving. So create boundaries with your working time, especially for people who work for yourself. Working at 2 a.m. is not healthy at all. It will not make you more money. It will make you more tired, more sick, and then you will use the money that you made at 2 a.m. to get help, which is not worth it. Um, be able to prioritize, like set priorities with your work, be able to create a balance between your work life and your personal life, be able to establish that if this doesn't fulfill me, I will not do it. Learn how to say no. Do not have to take every job that comes your way. It's harder said. See, it's very good to say, I'm sorry, I'm not qualified to do that. I'm sorry, I'm not in a position to take over that. It's good to learn how to say no. These are what we call healthy boundaries. Another way is relaxation strategies. This really work well with anxiety and depression. So breathing exercises, we do deep breathing. You could do yoga, meditation, having a routine in the morning that helps you to really calm down before you start your day. Doing music and art therapy. Like I said earlier, music is very good therapy. Get into your house, get into your room, put on some music and just dance. Just have a good dance. That is very important, and it could really help with coping and preventing some of these things from escalating and becoming a problem later. And the final one is health and fitness. I know I keep mentioning health and fitness, and everybody, often people who I meet roll their eyes and they're like, I am not going to work out. Like I said, working out is not going to the gym for an hour. Working out is taking a 20-minute walk. Working out is taking a stretch, ensuring that you eat the right foods. What are you putting into your body? So let's imagine you work till 2 a.m., 3 a.m., wake up at 6 a.m., put in 4 cups of coffee into your system. So already you're very jumpy. That in itself is heightening your anxiety levels. So it's very important to watch what we eat, what we put into our body, and to ensure that you do constant movement. And most importantly, ensure that you sleep. A lot of people say you were not supposed to sleep too much, it means you're lazy. Well, guess what? It will catch up to you. It's important to ensure that you have a sleep routine, have a specific time that you fall asleep and you wake up. This will create a routine for your body where you get to a point where you do not even need an alarm clock to wake up. Ensure you're in bed, let's say, for example, by 10 p.m. and you're up by 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. So if you know that you wake up pretty early, then sleep pretty late. Or if your work involves you working late into the night, then ensure you have a schedule that allows you to sleep a little bit longer in the morning. So you're able to get at least a minimum of 6 hours of sleep and rest in your system, because every single thing that happens in our lives is linked to sleep. It's funny how, think about it this way. The days that you don't get enough sleep, you always wake up and say, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Everything annoys you, everything goes wrong. The iron box isn't working, you cannot find an Uber just because you woke up late. But the thing, if you take record, you will see that it's because you did not sleep enough. If you did not rest enough, then your chances of getting burnt out and getting very jumpy during the day and going through a lot of anxiety is very high. So ensure that you get your sleep, people. And I think, Cindy, if there's any questions, I can take them right now.
Fantastic, Sherriz. Thank you so much. You've given us so much to think about and so much to apply as well, at least for me. So yeah, there's there's a question in the chat and a couple that people submitted earlier. So I'll run through those, and guys, feel free to drop some here. So Paula says, "Hello everyone. Can self-care help with burnout? Because sometimes you can do self-care of all kinds and still feel the burnout. How can one maneuver through this?"
Hi, Paula. Self-care can help with burnout, but then now the thing is, what self-care are you indulging in? The thing is, you need to establish what kind of rest that you need when you're burnt out. You could need a day's rest. This now depends on the intensity of your burnout. How much did you let it escalate? You could need a night to sleep in. You could need just a bit of a mani pedi, or you would need a whole vacation doing nothing. The thing is, the level of burnout determines the amount of, we could say, what you need to do to get out of the burnout. So if it's, let's say you had a very hectic week and you're very burnt out from that, a little Sunday nap could help. But then if it's something that you've been pushing for months, you have not stopped working for 6 to 8 months, there is no way that a day of mani pedi could pull you out of it. So just think of it as, the deeper you are into something, the harder you are to be pulled out. So yes, self-care is good for burnout. It's good to use self-care as a strategy to keep yourself from getting to burnout. But then you need to understand, what is the level of burnout that you are at? Is it a week's worth of exhaustion, or is it a year's worth of exhaustion?
Thanks so much. I think that's such a, I mean, just to jump in, it's such a revelation for me that there's a continuum of mental well-being, that it's not just I'm burnt out, is it yes or no? Like, and that actually there's several degrees of it and levels of it. The lower you go, the harder it is to come out. I think that's what you said. You go from low to high to high to high to high, right? So
Yeah.
it's a huge learning for me personally.
You muted yourself.
Oh dear, sorry. So there was a question that came in earlier during registration, and this is around work life. The question is, how do we maneuver through work and life in a state of well-being? Because it's so difficult not to get stressed and productive. So I think this is around balance and managing work and life balance.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I would say, how to maneuver a work life and personal social life balance revolves around creating boundaries. People don't like the word boundaries because they think it's shutting something away. It's creating crazy changes in your life, but everything needs boundaries in our lives. And for you to attain a certain level of work, family, social, personal well-being, you have to create boundaries. So for example, little boundaries you could start with include setting a specific time to work and sticking to it, And how do you make yourself not feel guilty for it? Constantly reminding yourself that I am doing this for my well-being. If I am not well, then I cannot do this. If I am not well, then I will not get to the level of productivity that I need to. And you see, the thing about, like I said, mental well-being is a continuum where you go up and low, up and low, up and low. The lower you go on the continuum chart, the more unproductive you become. It is the lower you go, the more unproductive you become. So how do you ensure that you don't go any low? How do you ensure that you maintain yourself at the bare minimum of functioning to call yourself a mentally healthy person? Is creating boundaries, reminding yourself that these boundaries are for your well-being, and reminding yourself if you're not well, then you cannot be able to do this job that you feel like will crumble if you do not do it. I like to tell people that whether you're there or not, work will go on. That's the thing. So you need to understand that, all right, so if I do drop down right now, they'll pick me up, rush me to the hospital, and then find someone to fill up what I needed to do. Or it will still go on. If I was going to lose a project, I would lose it, whether I pushed myself extra hard or I didn't. The thing is, you need to understand that being able to state the finality that I need to be well to do well, reminding yourself over and over, I need to be well to do well, will be able to help you set up boundaries and stick to them. And then you're able to now have a balance. If you say, I don't want to work the weekends, then you need to actually state, I'm sorry. If someone does call you back up, you need to tell them, hi, I'm sorry. Can I call you back on Monday morning? Can I call you back Monday, 7 a.m.? It will be easier for you to do it if you remind yourself, if I rest up today, I'll be more productive on Monday. I'll be more helpful to this person on Monday than I would be right now if I said, okay, cool, let me just pop in onto my computer real quick. So it's important to keep reminding yourself, if you're not well, then you will not be well. Then that in turn will help you form healthy boundaries with your work. And then that will in turn help you to have a balance.
There was something that you said, Sherriz, about also like linking, um, sort of like doing a mental switch where you reward yourself for setting the boundaries and maintaining it. You said it earlier on. Maybe you could just repeat that because I think that was also really um, might be.
I didn't get that.
I said early on in the conversation. Sorry, I'll just repeat. Early on in the conversation, you made reference to a switch that we almost have to undertake in our minds to
Mm-hmm.
to see us maintaining boundaries as something like we're rewarding ourselves, like for doing that. I probably haven't said it quite how you said it, but maybe you could just repeat that again because I think that would also address this question.
For creating boundaries. All right, so creating boundaries is pretty hard, especially if you have been living your entire life with no boundaries. It's going to be pretty hard, but it's really, we call it the reinforcement theory, where if you do something and something good is given to you, you will keep doing this thing. So it's important to reinforce your brain, to reinforce your mind, to remind your brain that I am creating this boundary for my well-being. It's important to keep reminding yourself because the world will tell you you're being selfish. The world will tell you that you're not giving enough, you're not sacrificing enough, you're not working hard enough. But if you have made it stick into your brain that this is a good thing, then you've reinforced it enough to believe it yourself that it's a good thing. What we do wrong most times is we begin with reinforcement as positive affirmations. I have nothing wrong with positive affirmations, not my cup of tea either. But I feel like positive affirmations, what they do is they give you this level of, yes, I can do this, I can say no, and then you can only do it for 2 days. Because the thing is, it's something that pumps you up. It's like caffeine. It wakes you up for a couple of hours and then now it takes you all the way down. What you need to do is, instead of using the affirmation, you need to begin to communicate with yourself. You need to speak to yourself the way you'd speak to someone who you love. How you tell your people, no, you need to stop doing this because it's not good for yourself. Then the more you tell yourself that, then you're going to be able to surround yourself with people who tell yourself such things. So if you tell yourself, by me saying no to working after hours, if it doesn't have any benefit to me, I am not being ungrateful. I am not being mean. I am being kind to myself. It's just a constant realm of affirming yourself. We call it, it's a cognitive behavioral link where your thoughts and your behaviors are automatically linked. And most times we don't see it. We have this instant thoughts that control all our behaviors and all our reaction, which we call the core beliefs. So your core beliefs are things that probably were put into you when you were 3 years old and you can't remember, and they go through your brain super fast. You don't even notice them. You just know that, oh, when I am asked to work overtime, I can't say no. That's your automatic response. That's your behavioral response. But once you start to realize it's because someone told you you always have to do your best, and your best is going up and over and beyond for what other people want more than what you want, then now you can understand, okay, so it's okay for me to decide, no, I cannot do that. No, I can do that tomorrow, and stuff like that. So it's easier to come up with boundaries when you do it's easier to come up with boundaries when you reaffirm yourself and you unlearn things that made you feel like your boundaries were a bad thing.
Unlearning and reaffirming.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks, Sherriz. So there's a specific one here that around what are coping mechanisms when working from home and dealing with workload.
All right. Coping mechanisms when working from home. I can relate. So working from home can make you feel like you're not really working. So that's where we find people working late into the night, or taking every call that comes through, or taking everything that is sent to you because you have the comfort of working from home, and that can make you feel guilty for not taking on as much as you think you should. So some of the things you could do is taking constant breaks. It's very important. We have a theory that says for every 1 hour of work, take a 15-minute break. So basically work 45 minutes, take a break. 45 minutes, take a break. 45 minutes, take a break. And when you take those breaks, make them not just switching off your screen and going on your phone to scroll through something. Make your 15 minutes, go take a shower in your 15 minutes, go outside and let the sun hit you for 15 minutes, cook something that you enjoy for 15 minutes. It's very important to make sure you have that. Also, because you're working from home and you have no one really managing your working hours, it's really important to manage your working hours. I feel like I've said that a lot. It's very important to make sure you have, even if it's going to write it down, say that you're going to work from this time to this time, and then not doing anything work related after a certain time. It's very important to stick to that. Also, a lot of things about working from home is there's a guilt associated with it because you're no longer getting out of your space. It's important to remind yourself that you're still working, even if you are working from the comfort of your home, you are still working. So it's very important to remind yourself that even if I'm not going out of the house, I am still working, and I need to do what I would do if I went to an office. Can I cope with this workload for one day? No, then let me split it into 2 days. So it's very important to just take notice of that and take breaks.
Thanks, Sherriz. This one is related, and then I think we probably have time for one or two more. One of them. So if anybody has any questions or if there's some comments that they'd like, feel free to drop in the chat. I think we have time for one or two. So this one is also quite specific. How do I compartmentalize my anxiety thoughts for them not to affect other areas of my life?
All right, that's very interesting. So yeah, one thing we say a lot in the therapy world is your thoughts are not true. Your thoughts are lying to you. Just because you think it doesn't mean it's true. We have come up as human beings, we like to think ourselves as right. And so once you think a thought, you will work extra hard to make sure it's right. So it's a constant battle to establish a truthful thought and a just a thought. So how do you do this? You could use the fact, and it's called a balance. We call it the fact or thought balance. So every time a thought comes through your mind when you're going through an anxiety episode, you need to weigh in the facts. Is I'm thinking, let's use an example. I have anxiety of, let's say, presenting in front of people. And what do I think will happen if I speak in front of people? I think if I speak in front of people, they will laugh at me. I will forget how to speak. I will mess up and I'll make a fool of myself. So, what do? You never take any opportunity to speak to people, and then that affects your work, affects your confidence, brings in, so you know, if you speak to people to grow your income or something like that, but you never do because of anxiety. So how do you deal with such? You remind yourself, sit down and do the weighing scale. You could just think of it as like the balancing weighing scale. So take the fact or write it down, like write it on a piece of paper and write my thoughts and the factual evidence. Okay, so what am I going to speak about? I'm going to speak about taxes. Am I good at this? Yes, I went to school for tax work. I've been working with the KRA for this time. Like, you come up with factual evidence of the different things that you're thinking about. That's one way you can conquer anxious thoughts. This works even in social anxiety. This works even when we think that we have to control the future. Think about it and then use a factual way of evaluating them. Always use a fact. If I am afraid of driving, ask yourself, have I been a good driver? Do I have a license? Did I pass an exam? Have I ever caused an accident before? If the answers are no, 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 then why do I call myself a bad driver? If there is a factual evidence that I am quite not a good driver and that's why I'm so anxious about driving, what can I do about it? I could take a refresher course. I could have someone teach me how to maneuver this and this, which I think I'm not so good about. That's how it's a very one of the ways to really deal with anxious thoughts. Always weigh your thoughts and remind yourself your thoughts are not true. Just because you think them doesn't mean they're true. And then also, if I think them, then are they true? What evidence is there to prove that they're true? Most times you find yourself overthinking, and when you weigh on the truth meter and you just realize, okay, yeah, some things I overthink about could never happen in this world. So yeah.
I hope whoever answered that, asked that question, could hear that answer. I think that's super useful. Um, so I think on my end, I think the rest of the comments from the registration have been addressed in your presentation. Sherriz, I think maybe you could take us to the last slide and tell people um, a little bit about your practice, how they can find you. Um, and then I'll just share the results of the poll as well. And I don't know if everybody can, yeah, I think all the attendees can view the poll results. So
Yeah.
most people feel okay. Most people are feeling okay. Um, feel good. And I think this is just kind of reinforces what you said about being on a continuum, right? And it's totally okay not feeling
Yeah.
or to be ecstatic today, like, and not be afraid that you're then going to go and crash tomorrow, because that's, you know, as you mentioned, we're on a continuum.
Mm-hmm.
And, given that we wanted to situate this discussion in business and work, in our work, so it's interesting to note that it's kind of a split even, right? With,
Mm-hmm.
to the question whether work is your biggest stressor.
Yeah.
No and yes. That's quite encouraging. So Sherriz, take it away now.
All right. It's been pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I like the poll. I'm looking at the poll results and I'm like, I'm so happy that most people are feeling okay. I don't feel my best. The thing is, I'd like to remind people that how we deal with stresses and emotions and feelings, we're all not the same. And your mental health and your mental well-being, you have the right to decide. I think this poll is pretty good and shows that how you feel is what matters, and other people should not tell you how you feel, not guilt trip you into feeling okay. And it's really important to note that if you don't feel okay, say that you don't feel okay. Don't let anybody say, oh, you need to be okay because you need to be grateful. No, it's okay to not feel okay, and it's healthy to feel your emotions, because if you don't feel your emotions, then that's a scary place to be. It's very healthy to feel your emotions, and it's like we said, mental health is a continuum. Today you don't feel great, tomorrow you feel great. And if you feel like you need a little bit of help in feeling better, then you could always reach out to somebody to help you out. Yeah, and use the coping mechanisms and all that. So yeah, it's been pretty awesome, Cindy. Thank you. Thank you for a chance to have this conversation. I feel so pumped. It feels so good. Just in time for Mental Health Awareness Month. As I said earlier, my name is Sherriz Mideva, and I am a psychologist, part of the M&M Wellness organization, which majorly consists of myself and a few very silent partners and two or three other therapists. We work, majorly what we do is we offer therapy services at a fee, on an hourly basis. We also offer school visits, we offer corporate visits where we go and speak to people in the workplace, where we help organizations create a better workplace for their employees for maximum productivity. We also focus on self-development, which is helping you like get over your past trauma or get over your habits that are keeping you from being your optimum self. So M&M Wellness majorly focuses on finding your best self. And this means dealing with your trauma, dealing with the difficulties of everyday life, and helping you generally become better and more productive, helping companies and people in the corporate world to be able to maximize every single employee and not have employees quit every day or have employees show up to work and the number of employees you have and the return doesn't make sense. So we do a lot of that. We offer services both online and in person at the MombasaWorks offices and online via Zoom. So yes, you can contact me in case you have any further questions. My email address is on the screen and both my numbers. And that's my Instagram handle at Miss Mideva. Actually, that's my handle everywhere on Instagram, on Twitter. I don't know if I'm on any other social media site. I feel like I'm a young old person. Um, yeah. So yes, I'd love to have the conversation. You could follow me on my social media pages. We have a lot of fun there. Like I told you, being mentally healthy means having a balance, having the whole shebang, enjoying life, working hard, making money, but also being okay. We could connect on social media. We could connect on email, call me or text me anytime before 5 p.m. I have my boundaries. And I hope everybody will create their boundaries. But do call me anytime between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. If I'm not in session, I will answer your call. I do offer 15-minute free calls. Your first call for 15 minutes, you can have a consultation for 15 minutes, it's free. And then you can decide if I'm good for you or if you can be able to help, I can be able to help you to help you find someone else who's better suited for you and for your organization, your company, or you personally, your family, and anybody else. Yep.
Thank you so much, Sherriz. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to be here. We will make the recording and the slides available for those of you who've attended. And if there are any other resources, Sherriz will share with me to share with all of you guys as well. Have a lovely evening and thank you for joining this webinar. Good night, everybody.
Bye. Bye.